Alright everyone, I noticed a small error in the tutorial that I wanted to correct, and then I also kind of got a few confusing questions from people that I want to clarify here. So I'm just going to breeze through this app. You guys can follow along. I'll explain a little bit as I go. Let's see, so I'm going in. I have, this is my workspace. This is where I keep all my code. In there I have a folder called Django. In here I can do ls and I have nothing. If I do pip freeze, which is a command that lists everything that you've installed on this pip, if I've got Django 1.1.10, I can run this first command right here. So I'm going to do python -m Django version. This is just going to print out the Django version. You can see this matches up there. Alright. I think what's confusing people is we did some of this from the interpreter. So I can open my Python interpreter, I can do import Django, and then I can see Django.version, right? Does the same thing. Basically, there's three different ways to check if you have Django successfully installed. What I noticed was a bunch of people were running these commands in this tutorial from the interpreter, and you absolutely do not want to do that. You're going to get a bunch of errors. Nothing's going to work. So I'm going to do Control C, and I quit out of my interpreter. Still in Django directory with no files in there. So I'm going to create a project. And it says right here, from the command line, cd into a directory you'd like to store your code. So I'm going to store all my Django code for the rest of this class in this Django directory. And I'm going to see Django admin. I don't need that dot execute. Django admin, start project. My site. Now what this is going to do is right here, I think it talks about here, it's going to create all this. So notice I have nothing in here now. After I run this command, it's going to create this. This is the directory structure that Django needs to function. So I do that ls. So now here's this my site directory, which is right here. I'm going to cd into that, and we should see this file right here, manage.py, with a my site directory. There they are right there. And then in this my site directory, we should have these files. So I'm going to cd into that, and look, there they are. So basically what you need, the terminology that I'm going to use from now on is when I say your project's root level directory, that means whatever directory has your manage.py in there. So you should be able to go into that directory, do ls, and you should see your manage.py pop up. I'm going to clear my screen here. When I say your project's root level settings or root level URLs or root level views, what I'm saying is this directory right here, these files. So if I say open up your project's root level settings, it means go into this where you see the manage.py file, go into this my site directory, and open this settings.py file. All right, so cd, I want to open my root level settings. So I'm in my root level directory where my manage.py is. Go into my site. Here's my settings. So I'm just going to open that. All right, and it's this huge file. But we'll get to that. Let's continue through the tutorial. And just so you guys know, Django is kind of overwhelming to begin with. Don't get intimidated. This is just a quick introduction, and we're going to get a lot more familiar with Django later. So I'm going to do this. Change into our outer my site directory, and that's where your project's root level directory, where your manage.py is, and run the following command: python manage.py run server. Remember, these are all ran from your command line, not your Python interpreter. Don't worry about this where you have the 13 unapplied migrations. We're going to get to resolving that eventually. So you see this, and what this is started a development server at this web address. So I can go to this web address right now, which is what I'm going to do. Open up a new tab in your browser, and I pasted that in, and it says it works. So Django powered web page. So my browser is going to this location, which is really just a you can also do localhost. So it's really going onto my computer. going to port 8000, which is what this server is running on, and that's accessing Django. You'll see over here, this is your server log. So if I refresh this right here, there you go. So you see this stuff pop up. So the date that the server was accessed, the time it was accessed, this is a GET request. So there's two types, GET and POST. This is, I think, just the protocol version of HTTP. I'm not really sure what the 1.1 is for. This 200 is for a request code. And let's see if you're, there you go, HTTP status codes. If you're curious of what they are, so a 200 was okay. You'll probably see a lot of these pop up, 304s, not modified. You'll probably see a bunch of these, 404, not found. But if you're curious as what these different codes are, they're right here, HTTP status codes. Alright, so let's keep going here. So we got our server running on our computer on port 8000. We've accessed it. We saw that it ran. So you can change the port if you want. I'm going to skip this part because it's not really important. Alright, so now I want to create an app. So I need to exit off of my server. So I'm going to do that using Control-C. Alright, and notice now I'm back in my command line and I'm in my project's root level directory. And I need to run this command, manage.py start app polls. This guy right there. Alright, so I'm going to say python manage.py start app. And this is very similar to the start project, where it just is going to build a directory structure for us. And it builds this one right here. So I'm going to cd into polls, and we're going to see all these files right here. There you go. Alright, so this is the directory structure that's going to house the poll application. And just take a look right here. So what is a project versus an app? So an app is a web application that does something. The project is a aggregate of all your applications. Alright, so you can have multiple apps in one project, but each project only has, or multiple apps in a project, but your project only has one project. Alright, so we got this. So it says write your first view. So a view is nothing more than a Python function that Django is going to use to serve you a web page. So right here, like when I did this. Oh, by the way, if you do this again, it's not going to work. I get a 404 error because my web server is not running. So it's going here, localhost to my computer, going to port 8000. There's no web server there. So if you see this, if you refresh your page and you can't get this, chances are your web server isn't running. All right, so this view. So I'm in my polls app. And I'm going to open up the views.py file. Alright, and this is the error I was talking about. Render versus HTTP response. So we're going to use render for this. Mainly render is kind of the modern way of doing it. And, well, yeah, I take that back. This is going to work right here. So we'll just copy and paste this in. We can get to render later when we get more advanced. But I did notice that confused some people, where they opened this file up and they had render at the top, whereas in the tutorial it said HTTP response. So I copied and pasted that in, and I'm saving it. Alright, scroll down. So let's see, to create a URL conf in the polls directory. So we're staying in our polls directory. Alright, my site polls, and I'm going to open up a file called urls.py. This file doesn't exist already, so we're going to create it. urls.py. Created it. And I'm just going to copy and paste this in here. And save that. Let me relaunch that so we get some syntax highlighting. Alright. From django.conf.urls import URL. So we see that import command again, just like you saw it over here in the views.py file. And we're importing this module URL from this module over here. We're also saying from dot, which is the current directory, import views. So now, just like your lab 1 runs in your lab 1, now this urls.py file can see the views.py file. And that's how we can go in and run this views.index. So we're saying go into the views module and get me the index function. All right, very similar to what you've seen in your labs and your homeworks, and just a slightly different where now we're importing from deeper levels of modules. All right, so we got that. I'm going to go down here and point the root URL. So now this is in your my site, so your project's root level urls.py file. So I need to go up 1 directory. I can do that by doing cd ... Go into polls, or not polls, excuse me. Go into my site and go into Vim notepad++ urls.py. So notice the difference between these two files. Okay, this has a bunch of information at the top, and it's also your project's root level, so my site, the name of your project, root level URL configuration file. And what we want to do is I want to copy and paste this. Copy, I'm going to delete all this and repaste that in. And I'm just doing a lot of copy and paste to save some time. This is already going to be a long video because we're going through the whole tutorial. So that, we saved that. I save by pressing Control S. You can read more about what's actually going on right here. And now we're going to run that web server again. So we're going to run this command again. Since we're running the manage.py file, we need to be where the manage.py file is, which is our root level directory for the project. So I'm going to do python manage.py, run server. It works correctly, and it says go to localhost polls in your web browser. So go up here, polls, and hello world, you're at the polls index. So that is what we did right here. And we can change this, hello comp 525. Get all crazy, you just made your first Django app. Yay! Alright, save that, refresh this, and look at that. So alright, feel free to email me with any questions, or alternatively put them on Piazza, because chances are if you have a question, everyone else has the same question. Sorry for the length of the video. It's going to be 12-13 minutes. I try to keep it shorter, but I really wanted to go through this whole Django app file, make sure everyone understood what the web server was, how to start it, how to stop it. I'll explain a lot more about the URL to views process and what is actually going on there later on. And the biggest things to take away is make sure you're running these commands from the command line and not from the interpreter. All right, thanks.